Namaste. Welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We continue chapter 18, Mind and Supermind, and you'll have to give the page number.
Tell me the para.
Whence then does the limiting avidya?
Okay. So the page is 178. So, it's been quite a while, so just to remind you of the background of what we have discussed until now, it is the supermind that creates the universe. It's a creative, and its creative power is called Maya. It is below the Satchidananda. Satchidananda is static and delegates its power of creation to supermind. Everything below the supermind is a creation. It's a creation. The supermind is a creative. That which is above the supermind is not created, it is unmanifest. Okay. Then the supermind itself has a process by which it forms the unformed, which limits the infinite, and that is in 3 steps. That's a triple status of the supermind. First, there is the undifferentiated oneness. Undifferentiated, any 2 points are the same. There is no difference between them. A total blankness, if you want, just like the seed. Then, 1 step below that, the differentiations start taking form. The waves or the ripples in the sea, if you want. Each ripple knows that it is separate from the sea, and yet it is part of the sea. So, and 1 more step, and the ripples become waves, and there is more of individuality in them than there is of unity. It's beginning to forget that it is part of the sea. The moment it comes down into overmind, 1 step below the supermind, the process of multiplication, the multiplicity starts from there. You can see the unity even in the overmind consciousness, but the principle of multiplicity is well established and its origin in the overmind.
And what relation to the intuitive mind?
The intuitive mind is even below that. The intuitive mind is 1 step again below that, and these planes are actually not so geographically and hermetically sealed and not geographically situated. They all merge one into the other. So, if you want the series, first there is the supermind, then there is the overmind where multiplicity begins. 1 step below that is the intuitive mind. Then below that is the
illumined mind.
The illumined mind, where light is the principle. Then you come to higher mind, and then after higher mind, you descend into the normal human mind.
So the relation of the intuitive mind to the overmind?
The relation is already parts of some aspects of the overmind can be seen in the intuitive mind. But the intuitive mind is the identification. The knowledge by identification starts at the intuitive mind. 1 step below that, the identification is there. With the oneness, it becomes even more accentuated. There is a gradation, a clear gradation.
So it's not a hierarchy as such.
It's not a hierarchy, yet it is a hierarchy.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Good.
So, in the Samantha is saying the de-piecing, he is using the word de-piecing, the multiplicity starts at that level.
By the way, Nilisha looked it up and it is a word.
Pardon?
Nilisha looked it up and it is a word.
Oh, de-piecing. Yeah, these things go on changing over time. Many words which Srimdu uses, the dictionary says archaic use, and sometimes you don't even find in some dictionaries.
Yeah.
So you have to go to the internet and there you can get the origin.
But he mostly used Cambridge, did he not?
Cambridge often gives what Oxford does not give, yes. But there are so many other dictionaries. There's Webster's, then there's Cassell's, and not all of them give all the same word. They sometimes differ. So we read the para first. Whence then does the limiting avidya, the fall of mind from supermind, and the consequent idea of real division originally proceed? Exactly from what perversion of the supramental functioning? It proceeds from the individualized soul viewing everything from its own standpoint and excluding all others. It proceeds, that is to say, by an exclusive concentration of consciousness, an exclusive self-identification of the soul with a particular temporal and spatial action, which is only a part of its own play of being. It starts from the soul's ignoring the fact that all others are also itself, all other action its own action, and all other states of being and consciousness equally its own, as well as the action of the one particular moment in time and one particular standing point in space and the one particular form it presently occupies. It concentrates on the moment, the field, the form, the movement, so as to lose the rest. It has then to recover the rest by linking together the successions of moments, the successions of points of space, the successions of forms in time and space, the succession of movements in time and space. It has thus lost the truth of the indivisibility of time, the indivisibility of force and substance. It has lost sight even of the obvious fact that all minds are one mind taking many standpoints, all lives one life developing many currents of activity, all body and form one substance of force and consciousness concentrating into many apparent stabilities of force and consciousness. But in truth, all these stabilities are really only a constant whirl of movement, repeating a form while it modifies it. They are nothing more. For the mind tries to clamp everything into rigidly fixed forms and apparently unchanging or unmoving external factors, because otherwise it cannot act. It then thinks it has got what it wants. In reality, all is a flux of change and renewal, and there is no fixed form in itself and no unchanging external factor. Only the eternal real idea is firm and maintains a certain ordered constancy of figures and relations in the flux of things, a constancy which the mind vainly attempts to imitate by attributing fixity to that which is always inconstant. These truths mind has to rediscover. It knows them all the time, but only in the hidden back of its consciousness, in the secret light of its self-being. And that light is to it a darkness, because it has created the ignorance, because it has lapsed from the dividing into the divided mentality, because it has become involved in its own workings and in its own creations.
Powerful paragraph.
Very clear, na, what he is saying? Jao. He is discussing that the power of Maya. How does that which is one become divisible? So first of all there is total oneness, then slowly the oneness starts becoming more and more, it is going towards more and more the multiplicity. Finally you end up at the lowest level, total multiplicity, and you have forgotten the oneness. Mentally you can think of a oneness. I can think that all the bodies are matter. But that's not what the real thing is. You have to see and experience it as reality. So that's what he's saying. And this, the power of Maya, the power of avidya does that. It has the power to hide knowledge and make it ignorance. It has the power to hide consciousness and make it unconsciousness. And that also it does it in grades, slow divisions, until finally you have total multiplicity and you have forgotten. So it is exclusive concentration that does the job. He has got a whole chapter on exclusive concentration later on, and he compares it to the type of which happens here all the time. Suppose we are concentrating on the life divine, we have forgotten that I live opposite the Golconda, that I have a sister, that I have a brother, that I was born in some place. All these things we have forgotten completely. Exclusive concentration. At our level, we can recover all that we have put away into the background of our consciousness. I can immediately know when I live and all I can. But spiritually, that becomes very difficult to recover what you have lost, what you have purposely put into the background of your consciousness. Because ignorance has a great power. He compares the exclusive concentration to that.
I need some explanation. For the mind tries to clamp everything into rigidly fixed forms. And apparently unchanging or unmoving external factors, because otherwise it cannot act.
Yes.
It then thinks it has got what it wants. In reality, all is a flux of change and renewal.
Yes.
That's the question. The flux of change and renewal.
So, it's a very interesting thing what he's saying. As soon as you go above the mind, the lower hemisphere is body, life and mind. This region is one of constant movement. There is nothing fixed in it. Even our own body, even as I am speaking now, if I do this, some of the things come off, some dead skin comes off. Every minute I am taking in food 3 times a day, I am changing myself. I am also, there is some incoming and outgoing. This happens with everything. Even the Himalayas, which seem to be so solid and unmoving, wind, rain, hail, the climate change is changing it every second. So nothing is constant in the world. In fact, the world is characterized by constant movement and inconstancy. That's why the experience of the self is so important. When you go to the self, your consciousness enters into a place which is absolutely static. So this is the basic difference. Even our own body, everything is changing. That which seems to be unchanging is actually changing all the time. So this is a fact that we have to realize. So if it were going on changing very fast, then if I am talking to you and you go on changing, to whom am I going to talk to? So the mind has to consider that there is a stable form, and then action becomes possible. If everything is going on changing, how is meaningful action going to take place? It can't. I am talking to Narad now, but suddenly you are not Narad anymore but something else. So what am I going to say? What I intended to say to you, I can't say anymore. So
when he says no fixed form in itself,
yes,
and he hyphenates it,
yes,
and no unchanging external factor.
Yes. So everything, while it is changing, still there is a semblance of stability. But that stability is an illusion. There is nothing stable in the physical world.
One thing, undivisibility of form, I can understand, but time, it's very difficult to understand for mind.
Yeah, because when you go to the self, there is no time. It becomes static. What is meant by static? There is no movement at all there in the consciousness. The movement is all there below. When you are in the experience of the self, you are in a static contact. Static and silent. No movement at all. So that's why it is in a timeless condition.
I thought he is speaking the past, present, the future is one thing.
Yes, but that also is static.
No
Your consciousness is in the static. You are seeing the movement below. That's why past, present, and the past, present, and future you are not seeing in your consciousness, you are seeing it below. Your consciousness is static. But you are watching and you can see in the physical world the sequence of things. Above the mind, there is stability. There is no change there. That is the reason why all the worlds are static. There's no evolution in those worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no evolution, there's no time. Evolution implies time and the passage of. So that's why he's saying that in the physical world, then I have to see past, present, and future. I have to collect all the pieces and put.
For us, past thing, you cannot go to past.
Yes.
Right? But there it is, he's saying it's undivided, it's not divided like that.
There it is undivided, here it is divided. And because it is divided and I am concentrating only on the moment, half an hour ago what was I doing? I have to recover that. Half an hour after this, what I am going to do? I have to imagine and do. So I have to collect the events in time and I have to also collect the points in space.
Very difficult mentally understand that there is no past, present and future.
There, at that level, there is no past, present, everything is static. But in the physical world, no stability at all. But the change is so slow the change that you feel that there is a stability, but there is no stability.
And to the awakened psychic being?
The psychic is not in a stable condition, it is evolving.
Okay, got it. Mm-hmm.
The self does not evolve.
Mm-hmm.
The self is above the mind.
Yeah.
When you go into the higher mind, the self is static. And the individual self is the self of all. It's a universal self. That is static. But the psychic being is not static, it is evolving. The psychic being in the beginning is the soul. We discussed that one day. The soul is the divine presence in everything but sleeping condition. Slowly through many lives it develops and grows conscious of itself and then it becomes a psychic being. It becomes conscious of itself, it drives you towards the divine. But in a stone, the divine presence is there, but there is no psychic being there. Even in the lower forms of animals, there is no psychic being. Sometimes Mother says even in human beings, there is no psychic being. It can happen.
As a result of a birth from the animal?
That also is there. And after all, the psychic being has to, the being has to enter the created body. At what time does it enter?
Our Mother speaks about this at length. She
Yes.
says sometimes it could be a long time after,
Yes.
sometimes before,
Yes.
sometimes immediately on birth.
Yes. It can be at the time of conception, it can be at the time of delivery, it can be after the delivery. It can be all these things. And sometimes it need not enter at all. It's just a machine that is produced by nature. Just a body-mind life. That's what a robot is. Now we have managed to make a robot. But the robot probably doesn't have any psychic being. We don't know how to know.
The scientists now prove that the substance is one. It is made of wave particles that they proved already. The substance is one, is undivided. So that wave particles. I'm saying the scientists prove that the substance is one.
Yes.
And it's made of wave particles.
Yes.
Small, infinitesimal.
Yes.
And Sri Aurobindo Savitri, he speaks about this.
Yes, of course.
It is infinitesimal wave sparks weaving dance. It's nebulous units.
Yes.
Ground in shape and mass.
Yeah.
He's speaking about
Nebulous wave particles weaving dance.
Yes.
weaving dance.
Yes.
So that dance of particles is discovered already, which is
In Life Divine also he has discussed this question. Whether this movement of the force which is there, does it come in packets or is it a continuous movement? This is the problem in quantum theory.
No,
And that's exactly what he discusses here also. It is both.
both.
It is both together. To understand that, you have to think of the take a cinema, you are watching a film, okay, serial film. In one scene, you see a person doing this, okay, it's very smooth. You feel it's a continuous movement. Is it really a continuous movement or is it a collection of broken parts? In the film, when you are seeing a continuous motion, each second of action is actually broken up into 24 frames. So, what you feel is a continuous motion is really a collection of small particles. So it's really the same, both.
The same, yes.
There is no difference. So now from the supermind, knowledge of supermind, slowly we have come down and now we are in the ignorance, avidya. Avidya has managed to make multiplicity absolutely the dominant factor. We have forgotten the unity of things. This ignorance is further deepened for man by his self-identification with the body. To us, mind seems to be determined by the body because it is preoccupied with that and devoted to the physical workings which it uses for its conscious superficial action in this gross material world. Employing constantly that operation of the brain and nerves which it has developed in the course of its own development in the body, it is too absorbed in observing what this physical machinery gives to it to get back from it to its own pure workings. Those are to it mostly subconscious. Still, we can conceive a life mind or life being which has got beyond the evolutionary necessity of this absorption and is able to see and even experience itself assuming body after body and not created separately in each body and ending with it. For it is only the physical impress of mind on matter, only the corporeal mentality that is so created, not the whole mental being. This corporeal mentality is merely our surface of mind, merely the front which it presents to physical experience. Behind, even in our terrestrial being, there is this other, subconscious or subliminal to us, which knows itself as more than the body and is capable of a less materialized action. To this we owe immediately most of the larger, deeper and more forceful dynamic action of our surface mind. This, when we become conscious of it or of its impress on us, is our first idea or our first realization of a soul of or inner being, Purusha. There is a footnote there for the Purusha, perceived as a life being or vital being, Pranamaya Purusha. So what Sri Aurobindo is saying that when we are in total ignorance, we are conscious only of our body. We think of our body, even when we think of our mind and our life, we feel it's coming from the body. We can't differentiate between mind, life and body. Only when your soul goes out of your body, that is liberation, then you realize that there are three parts in you. You have a physical body, you have a vital body and you have a mental body, and the soul is separate watching this formation in nature. The soul is imprisoned in the body-mind life and it identifies itself with the body. But it does not know that there is something, Sri Aurobindo is describing that, the subliminal part. So actually what is the human being? He is the body in which there is a life and there is a mind which is working in it. There is something below him, there is something inside him, there is something above him. All this is the human being. The human being is nothing but the entire universe. If you condense the universe, you have the individual. So everything that is there in the universe is there in the individual. You have a superconscient, you have an intraconscient, you have a subconscient, and you have also the circumconscient, what he calls. But you don't know this. You have identified yourself only with the body. So when your identification with the body ceases, then you see that you are much more than the body. Sometimes you can realize yourself as a life being. He calls that the vital Purusha. Sometimes you can identify yourself with the mind, that's the mental Purusha. Pranamaya Purusha, Manomaya Purusha, and even the body. There's a subtle body, and you can also Annamaya Purusha. You can identify, and there is a physical soul, there is a vital soul, and a mental soul, and all this is the intraconscient, what he calls the subliminal, deep inside yourself. This is what he is saying.
How do you use the word soul when you say there is a vital soul, a mental soul?
Yes, we feel that it is, Because the divine presence is there everywhere. So if the divine presence is there in matter, that would be the physical soul.
Okay.
When the divine is there in the vital, that would be the vital soul. When the divine is there in the mind, it's all one, yet there are different parts. So you can experience yourself as a mental Purusha, you can experience yourself as a vital Purusha, you can experience yourself as even a physical Purusha in the subtle physical. And that's all in the intraconscious. You have to go deep into yourself. If you go deep into yourself, and behind all these, there is the psychic being behind all this also. So first there is the outer body, mind, life. There is the outer nature. If you manage to go in, you may touch the mental Purusha or the vital Purusha or the physical Purusha. You go even deeper inside, behind all this is the psychic being.
So those great souls, yogis, who have transcended body, mind, and life, they are aware of the body soul, vital soul?
May not be. Because what you are talking of transcending is going up vertically. But we are talking of going inwards. So they is here talking of going inwards. So when you are going inwards, you hit the psychic being. You get devotion and love. But if you go up, you may not get devotion and love. You may get only knowledge. You will get vastness. You will hit the self. The self which is static. The psychic being is not static. So these are all different experiences that you have. If you go in, you will get the aspect of bhakti and devotion. If you hit the psychic being. If you go up, you will get the knowledge. So this, what you are talking of, is going up. Sri Aurobindo had clearly the experience of going up. He had the knowledge, but very clearly he says in a letter to Dilip Kumar Roy that there was no emotion in me at all. Absolutely no emotion. Only a total release and a freedom. I am not imprisoned in the body-mind life. I am pure consciousness. I am pure soul. There is a beautiful poem of Shankaracharya also, in what is called the Nirvana Ashtakam. And there he says, I am not the mind, I am not Mano, Buddhi, Ahankara, Chittani, Naham. I am not all these things. Then what am I? Chirananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. I am pure consciousness.
So you say that Sri Aurobindo went up and had knowledge, but we know him as the most compassionate.
The compassion comes later, not at that time.
Okay.
The compassion, emotion, that which feels to be empty in the beginning, actually starts filling up later on. With all this power and all that, if you wait patiently, it starts filling up. The emptiness, the nirvana experience of emptiness starts filling up if you are patient and call them down, then they come in. But in the beginning, he had no emotion at all. No compassion, nothing. Just a objective, cold, calm, peaceful look at everything without judgment. That's the self. So that's what he had.
Yes.
So here Sri Aurobindo is saying, at our ignorance level, we identify ourselves with our body. We don't even, those who are intellectuals, they may feel that their mind is separate from the body, they may feel. Or those who are very, very vital, they may feel that they have a vitality which is separate from. In fact, there are philosophies on all these things. There is the materialist philosophy is matter is the only reality. Then there is Bergson. His Elan Vital was his.
Bergson, Elan Vital.
Elan Vital. That is the vital being, is the most important. Then comes René Descartes, who says, I think, therefore I am. The mind is the most important part. The other things are not that important. And Sri Aurobindo says all of them are wrong. I am because I am soul and not body, mind, life. He says that in the Thoughts and Aphorisms. He says, I exist because I am soul and not because I am mind or life or body. Okay? So, but this life mentality also, though it may get free from the error of body, does not make us free from the whole error of mind. It is still subject to the original act of ignorance by which the individualized soul regards everything from its own standpoint and can see the truth of things only as they present themselves to it from outside, or else as they rise up to its view from its separate temporal and spatial consciousness, forms and results of past and present experience. It is not conscious of its other selves except by the outward indications they give of their existence, indications of communicated thought, speech, action, result of actions, or subtler indications, not felt directly by the physical being, of vital impact and relation. Equally is it ignorant of itself, for it knows of itself only through a movement in time and a succession of lives in which it has used its variously embodied energies. As the physical instrumental mind has the illusion of the body, so this subconscious dynamic mind has the illusion of life. In that it is absorbed and concentrated, by that it is limited, with that it identifies its being. Here we do not yet get back to the meeting place of mind and supermind and the point at which they originally separated. Sremda is here speaking about the different minds, the physical mind, the vital mind, and the pure mind. So in this para he has been discussing the life mind. In the previous para he was discussing the physical mind. The mind identifies itself with the body and thinks that it is the body. But in some cases it can identify itself with its life, like the Elam Vithal that we are speaking of. So it then thinks that it is the life more than the... So there is a physical mind, which is in Indian philosophy or rather psychology we call it manas. That part of the mind which interprets only the senses. Then there is the vital mind which has the power of energy. It plans the future, it fantasizes, it imagines. This is what the vital mind is. Then there is a pure mind which is not affected by the body and the vital. It is capable of logical thinking, it is capable of reason. The physical mind and the vital mind cannot think purely. They are affected by the body, our desires, and the vital. So he is discussing this, that sometimes you may identify, the mind will identify itself with the body, there is a physical mind acting. Or it can identify itself with the life mind, and it will think that it is an illusion that I am the life. This is what he has discussed here. I'll read out to you in different words what he is saying. Okay? He is saying in this para, this life mind, which is he calls it also the vital mind or the dynamic mind, may free itself from identification with the body, but it still does identify itself more with the vital, pranamaya purusha. It is still in ignorance, part of the mind. It is still in ignorance. It views and understands all things from its own separate existence and relates all events to itself alone. It is quite unaware of its unity with all the other selves as it had in the second phase of the supermind. But it is also quite ignorant of itself. It does not quite know itself. Just as the physical mind identifies itself with the body, so too does the vital mind identify itself with the vital, the prana. We are still quite far away from the meeting place with the supermind. He is describing one by one below. When you identify yourself with the body, is the physical mind. When you identify yourself with the vital, you feel that you are really the vital and not the body. Even then you are very far away. Then you come to the pure mind. The pure mind is that the intellectuals have pure mind. Srivta says the pure mind has not yet mind is still evolving, he says. He says most of humanity doesn't have a pure mind. They live more in the vital mind than the physical mind. For them, most of it is like that. Very few scientists, when they are researching objectively, they are using the pure mind. A philosopher is using a pure mind. A sage is using a pure mind. Very few, they are never objective. And if you are not objective, you are using a vital mind. You go by your preferences, you go by your desires, you go by your likes and dislikes.
Now, if one goes into a dream experience, obviously that's in the subtle physical, and has an experience of something very high, meeting Mother, for example, or Sri Aurobindo.
Okay.
What is operating at that point?
Okay, you are talking of dreams.
Yes.
So, dreams can come from the subconscious, and that time it is very, very confused, and it's a mixture of all sorts of things. Okay, all sorts of things coming. Because everything is recorded by the subconscious. When you are going from here after the talk, we are going back home, you are going maybe half a kilometer and you see so many things in the road which you don't pay attention to. But everything gets recorded in the subconscious, even when you are not conscious of it. So in dreams, it can come from the subconscious and then it is chaotic dreams. But if you go into your intraconscious, very often you get knowledge, you get to know the condition of your own being. So it can come from the subconscious, it can come from the intraconscious, it can come from all these different planes of consciousness. So when you have, particularly if you see Mother and Sri Aurobindo, you have gone into your intraconscious and your vital being or your inner mind, inner being is experiencing something real in the intraconscious.
Intraconscious.
But when you are dreaming, you don't go into the superconscious normally. It's usually the intraconscious that you are experiencing. And it can, if you go into truly into intraconscious, it reveals to you what can happen, it shows you your own condition, usually in symbols. So you have to learn how to interpret your symbols. And that's a very interesting exercise.
And Mother speaks about learning to catch one's dreams by pulling a fine thread.
Yes. Okay, so Sri Aurobindo is describing the levels of the mind. First is discussed the physical mind, it identifies itself with the body. Then the vital mind, it identifies itself with the vital. But still very far away from the supermind. Now we come to the, he comes to the pure mind, what I spoke of. He calls it the reason, or he also calls it the pure mentality. That's what we are going to read now. This is the third level of the mind. But there is still another clearer reflective mentality behind the dynamic and vital, which is capable of escaping from this absorption in life and views itself as assuming life and body in order to image out in active relations of energy that which it perceives in will and thought. It is the source of the pure thinker in us. It is that which knows mentality in itself and sees the world not in terms of life and body, but of mind. It is that which, when we get back to it, we sometimes mistake for the pure spirit, as we mistake the dynamic mind for the soul. This higher mind is able to perceive and deal with other souls as other forms of its pure self. It is capable of sensing them by pure mental impact and communication, and no longer only by vital and nervous impact and physical indication. It conceives too a mental figure of unity, and in its activity and its will, it can create and possess more directly, not only indirectly as in the ordinary physical life and in other minds and lives as well as its own. But still, even this pure mentality does not escape from the original error of mind, for it is still its separate mental self which it makes the judge, witness, and center of the universe, and through it alone strives to arrive at its own higher self and reality. All others are others, grouped to it around itself. When it wills to be free, it has to draw back from life and mind in order to disappear into real unity. For there is still the veil created by avidya between the mental and supramental action. An image of the truth gets through, not the truth itself. So, this is the pure mind. So, three levels of the mind. There is a physical mind, there is a vital mind, and there is a pure mind. And even the pure mind, it can think of itself as separate from the body and the vital, yet, and sometimes you can mistake that for the self, he is saying. Just as the physical mind thinks it's the body, the vital mind thinks it's the life, and it can mistake itself for the soul because the emotions are all there in the vital mind. So it can mistake itself for the soul. When you are in the pure mind, it can mistake itself for the spirit. But if you want to experience the spirit, you have to go even beyond all these three minds. You have to go to the higher mind level where you get the real self.
But he does write here, this higher mind is able to perceive and deal with other souls as other forms of its pure self.
Yes. It can start seeing the unity of things.
Telepathy. Is it telepathy?
I can conceive of myself as intellectually I can understand that all minds are one mind, seeming to be separated. But if you experience the pure mind, we are not experiencing the pure mind, but if you experience the pure mind, you can start seeing the oneness of things. That's what he's saying. He calls that the Manomaya Purusha. When that becomes separate from the body-mind life, liberated.
Communication, he's talking communication and pure mental impact. He's saying that it is capable of sensing them by pure mental impact in communication. And no longer by vital and nervous impact in physical communication.
It is capable of sensing them by pure mental impact and communication, and no longer only by vital and nervous impact and physical. Mental impact and communication, maybe he is talking of what is it called? Telepathy. Yeah, that's right, telepathy. He is thinking of telepathy. If you are in the pure mind, you lose your identity. I am not the body, I know very well, I am pure mind consciousness.
You can read thoughts of others.
Yes.
Or commute as well.
That's right.
He calls pure mind. Isn't there an expression, supramentalized mind, that Srivenu uses? Because he speaks of supramental thought somewhere. So there is a type of thought which is truth thought, right? That's what he means by pure mind.
What you are saying is possible. When you rise into the supramental, it starts having an influence below. You can see. So when the supermind descends into the mind can be supramentalized. That's possible. But usually it's not. It is static there only. It's an interesting thing. If you think of it from the bottom, it's very interesting. The only reality in the physical world is matter. Then there is a universal life force which is one world above the matter. But when that descends into matter, you get vitalized matter, which is the animal world. If that life plane does not enter into matter, then you can't have living animals. So when that world of life, which is separate from matter, comes into life, you have what you can call lifed matter. A matter into which life has been put. Okay, that's the animals. Even the worm is nothing but matter into which life has been put. Then there is the mind plane of consciousness. When mind enters into matter, it becomes mentalized matter. Matter has the capacity now to think. That's brain. The brain is nothing but mentalized matter. So why not have supermentalized matter? That also is possible. If you keep going up higher and higher, that can descend into this. Until now, the evolution has only proceeded up to the mental level. Matter has been mentalized. It has not yet been supermentalized.
We have many flowers Mother has named with this concept.
Yes.
Supermentalized consciousness.
Yes.
But in the plant world also is something of life come into matter, no? Not just animals, but plants also, no?
Plants.
Have plants also come in because of the life force?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I spoke of animals, but first is the plants. Yeah, that's right.
Before the animals.
Yeah, before the animals. That's right. Traditional Indian yoga is thinking only of the ascension. They are not thinking of the descent.
Right.
It is Sri Aurobindo who introduces the idea of descent. He says you must, to free yourself, you have to go up. Your consciousness has to leave the body, leave the vital, leave the mind and go up. But when you are stationed there, you see that you have no power to do anything below. So the power, if you have to pull that down into to change the lower planes of consciousness. And Sri Aurobindo is trying to do that with the supermind itself. He is trying to bring supermind down into, and they have succeeded in doing that. Next year is going to be a leap year, and 29th February will be the anniversary of that day when the supermind descended into the physical world. So that work has been done by these avatars, the dual avatars. But now it has to sprout from matter. That has not yet taken place.
And April 24th will be the centenary of Mother's victory over the hostile forces. My God, what a year. And Trump also will come for election.
2020, 2020. Going to be an important date.
You say that the supramental into matter has not yet begun.
The supramental has descended into matter, but Mother uses a very interesting word. She says it is englouti. That means it has got absorbed into matter. Matter has sort of overpowered it and imprisoned it. Now it has to slowly come out. The power of the Superman has to assert itself and get free of the imprisonment of matter. That has not yet taken place.
Would you possibly agree that the wealth of new flowers, new fragrances is part of that breaking out?
Absolutely. I would think that. In fact, it is even in children we have this phenomena.
Yes.
Extraordinary children are being born.
Yes.
It's a sign of this. And also all the violence that you see in the physical world, the violence, the disharmony, this is also a sign of the change. It's interesting, but it's a sign.
Yes.
Because whenever there is a certain stability and you introduce a new rule, in the beginning there is always a little disharmony. There is always a resistance. That's what you see in the world today, everywhere. But Mother and Sri Aurobindo were very categorical. They didn't say how long it will take for everything to become apparent. When you will be able to recognize a supramental being as quite different from yourself, they don't say. Mother says it could be 300 years, it could be 1,000 years. She says that we have to leave to the supermind itself. Because the supermind is infinite, you can't forecast what it will do. Sri Aurobindo was very categorical. When they asked specific questions, he said that the supermind has to decide what it will do. We can't forecast what it will do. Next time we'll finish the chapter.
Thank you, Ranga. Namaste.